Hello and welcome to the final demo presentation of our Capstone project ROpen. Testing frameworks are an essential part of any successful product delivery. A defect-free product reduces maintenance cost and testing efforts and provides a high return on investment and fits well in continuous integration, continuous delivery, and truly a delight for the engineering team and leadership. Having a good framework along with a great dashboard elevate teams to greatness. However, there is no one dashboard fits all needs. My name is Chella, and with me is Jignesh and Zadir. We have a bunch of exciting topics to be covered and a deep dive on our product demo. So stay tuned. Report Portal is a market leading open source tool that easily integrates with test frameworks, receives analytics in real time, and accumulates all test results in one place, including logs, history, and attachments. Also have easy integration with bug tracking systems and can track release readiness. With its inbuilt artificial intelligence capability, you can reduce time and cost to analyze failure scenarios. With more teams embracing the agile journey, it's critical to have a fast, accurate, and reliable dashboard in providing real time analytics of the health of the code. However, getting any open source software installed on any enterprise premises requires setup and configuration, which is a long process and takes a significant amount of time. Infrastructure as a core technology is increasingly adopted by organizations to provide capabilities to rapidly provision and deploy cloud environments. Examples include Terraform, AWS CloudFormation templates, Azure Resource Manager templates, Chef, Puppet, Red Hat Ansible, to name a few. In this project, we have implemented Report Portal on AWS as an infrastructure as a code.
Thanks, Chela, for the introduction of our project. Let's go and discuss the architecture diagram. So, as discussed earlier, right, we are going to use AWS CloudFormation to use infrastructure as a code. We decided to deploy the report portal services as a Docker container inside the EC2 containers. We decided to store all our data in RDS, managed services from AWS. Report portal use PostgreSQL. We secure it using security group, and everything is going to deploy inside the private subnet of the VPC that we are going to create using CloudFormation, so that your data is completely secure. And now let's come to the attachment part, right? So whenever you run your test, you add the attachments to the test. It's not recommended to store those attachments in databases. So Report Portal offers you multiple ways you can store those attachments. One is the normal file system on EC2 itself, or you can use it as a binary storage using S3 bucket. So we have decided to use S3 bucket to store the attachment. So in case if you want to get rid of the EC2 instances and if you want to scale it and you decided to go with ECS or EKS, right? You can just remove that part and plug in EKS and your attachments and everything. There is no data loss. So it's kind of, when we try to deploy, we try to reduce the dependency of EC2 itself, right? And all stack can be monitored using AWS CloudWatch in case anything's wrong with that. Now let's talk about the application load balancer. So the application load balancer is the only part in our product that is public facing, and only 443 port is allowed to go to the application load balancer, and application load balancer will be connected with MS on route 53. And user is going to come through route 53 and basically go inside your portal. You can deploy additional WAF or any other security measures that any organization has at the application load balancer level, right? And there is no change in your core, and it's totally secure within the private subnet. On the pipeline side, any code deployment or any code build you think of, you commit your code, you build code, you run the unit test, you deploy, then you run your functional tests, API test, security test, performance test, and once everything is fine, right, then you deploy your application into the production. So we try to create a sample pipeline, which basically uses these stages, and at various stages we are going to use the report portal API, their agents, to send data inside this report portal and create the visualization out of it. So the top part is for the demo purpose on how we are going to utilize the product that we deploy. So that's pretty much it about the architecture diagram. Now next is the cloud formation template that we have created, and Zahir and Chela is going to go through the different parts of that. So thank you.
Thanks, Jignesh. So, as mentioned, we are using CloudFormation for automating our infrastructure for the project. So, the next few slides are going to walk you through the components, but I'll just explain it over the code. So, here's the code, and we have the sections parameters, conditions, mappings, and resources. So, parameters basically indicate what input parameters the template accepts, and the report portal version, environment size, DB name, password, S3 bucket information, and stuff like that. Some of these have default setup, and some of these might be secure information like password and stuff, which you can configure from an external source like parameter store from the systems manager in AWS or any other vault. Then we have the conditions. The conditions basically say whether you want to deploy SSL or without SSL or stuff like that. And each of them sets a flag which is basically used downstream in the component or the resource. Then we have the mappings, which is basically the lookup information and which is used in the various resources. Now coming to the resources, we start off with the VPC, and then we have the public subnet and the private subnet, and the corresponding internet gateway and the NAT gateway. Then there is the SSH security group. The SSH security group is configured for two things basically. It allows SSH for the AC2 instances and also the AT-AT access for HTTP on the load balancer. So these are the ports on which these are configured. Then we have the EBS volume. The EBS volume itself is used for a particular purpose that the report portal has. It uses something called Elasticsearch, and the EBS volume is used for storing the index information of the Elasticsearch. Then we have the EC2 instance itself. The EC2 instance uses the various configurations that has been mentioned above, and also has a set of metadata, a part of which is config sets. And as part of the config sets, we provide some configuration and installation scripts, which is used to configure and install the report portal. So quickly looking at the install report portal information over here. So these are the commands it uses, like it fetches the Docker Compose and installs it, and then it fetches the Docker Compose YAML file that we have in our GitLab for our project, and then executes that to install the report portal with all the settings and configuration. Then we have the DB subnet group, DB security group, and report portal DB, which is basically for the Postgres database configuration. Then we have the S3 role, S3 user, and S3 user key. Now we are not setting the S3 bucket itself here because we don't want the consumer to lose the S3 bucket when the stack is deleted for any reason. So we would recommend that the S3 bucket is pre-created and provided as an input, the S3 bucket name, and then we just configure the roles and the user information over here. So that's about the S3, and the remaining sections like the load balancer and the DNS information will be explained by Chela. Thank you.
Thank you, Zahir. We have now come to the end of the configuration. Let's talk about the security group and load balancer. A little bit about security group. We can allow traffic as per your wishes, and everything else is denied. The best practice for any external facing website is to allow only HTTP and HTTPS access, and this HTTP and HTTPS can be set based on the CFN conditions defined earlier. And the load balancing is used to achieve fault tolerance for any applications by ensuring scalability, performance, and security. To increase availability of the applications, the load balancer distributes the incoming application traffic across multiple targets, such as EC2 instances in multiple availability zones. You can add one or more listeners, as you see here. We have added multiple listeners here, and the application load balancer is interfacing and have ports 80 and 443 open. The target group is attached with application load balancer. The registered EC2 instance and making sure the EC2 instance is healthy. So all these parameters are defined here as well. The listener checks for connection requests from clients using the protocol and the port, and it can have multiple rules or conditions, and each rule consists of a priority or one or more actions or one or more conditions. And on the Route 53, Route 53 hosted zone, resource is a type that contains information about how you want to route the traffic for a domain, in this case the report portal domain and its subdomains. So we now have everything required for us to launch the stack.
Okay, so let's get start on the project demo. So I'll go to the actual browser and then we'll go from there. So one way to deploy the portal is to go to the console and then enter all the necessary parameter details, right? So you enter all the parameter details that I explained earlier. You enter your key tag and whatnot, and you click on next because we are creating an IAM role. You just need to acknowledge this thing and create the stack, right? So once the stack is created, right? So if you go and check, once the stack is created, this is how it will look, and then you can go and check all the resources that has been created, all the output and everything, right? So that's one way to deploy it, right? The another way is we created a Jenkins file which basically asks you the same thing, right? You click on what you want to do, create or update, you want to delete it, right? You create an update. So everything is coded as a descriptive pipeline, right? So it will ask you which version you want to select. So we support all of these versions. After this, you click on proceed, what environment size you want to click, and then all the details. Again, same thing, right? There's nothing difference. Once you enter all the details, right, then you want to deploy with domain. Yes, I want to deploy with domain. I want to deploy with SSL, right? And then it will ask you the domain details and your SSL URL. So once you do this, it will start deploying the portal, right? Now, I just avoid this job because it doesn't make sense to. But I'll go through and just show you that how the report portal get deployed, right? So this is the shell script that will basically get executed in the backend on your cloud. And this is a post build where you basically retrieve the output and then we send a notification as an email notification. So that's how you basically deploy the report portal. Okay, so let's start with the actual report portal project demo, right? So let's assume that you are in your code repository, right? Let's say this is your application and you are maintaining this application. You have tests that is running against this system. Basically, this is the app that you want to deploy, right? So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just make a simple change on here, and then I'll show you that how report portal is going to basically trigger this change and how report portal is going to basically run the test, and you will be able to visualize the result, right? So let's make a change. I'm just making a version update so that we can track that version is getting updated or not. So once we make this change, right, usually what happens is any project that has continuous integration, right, as soon as you make the change, it will automatically going to trigger the change in your whatever CI/CD application you have. So for example, we have Jenkins here. So it's going to trigger the change pretty soon. If you see, it has started making the change here. So the first stage is to basically build your application and then deploy the application there, and now it's running the unit test. So if you see, it's running the unit test. If you go to report portal right now, right, it's basically you will be able to see your your test is running. If you see, it started the test cases, right? So it's going to run the unit test. Then, as per our pipeline, is going to run some API tests, and it's going to run some functional test, and then it's done, right? So it's going to keep running the stuff until it is completed. Meanwhile, I'll explain you a little bit of the AI component of the report portal, right? So once it completes its run, any failed test case goes to this column called to investigate, that you need to investigate why your test case failed. Now, what you do is you investigate and you assign it to the proper category. So once you assign it to proper category, uh, it has a machine learning component that will keep on learning that if this kind of an error is happening, then it should go to this bucket and that bucket and whatnot. So once the model is trained, right, it will automatically start categorizing the stuff. So that's how it basically add all the results in here. So if you see, this one is from the last version that ran 1.1.1. So if you see, this was the system issue. It was auto analyzed. This way you will come to know that it was auto analyzed. So just imagine you have like thousands of test cases, and your failures will automatically be categorized. How much time you are saving, right? On top of that, you have this dashboard capability that report portal gives you, right? You can check what is my release status of release 1.1.1. Okay, my release 92% test cases are passing. In that, okay, how many API test cases are passing, how many unit test cases are passing, how many functional, in functional also, what OS and what browsers are passing and whatnot. So it basically gives the leadership a high level view on the health of your release. And it can be configured with any pipeline, right? It has vast majority of support of the frameworks, and it has a big open source community. Yeah, so that's pretty much it about the report portal. So thank you for sticking till the end. So these are team role and the lesson learned. You mentioned what was the individual's responsibility on this project. These are some of the lessons learned that we had. We created, like, some of them we have listed here, like created S3 bucket with the data and then trying to delete stack prevention due to data in S3. So that's why we are not creating bucket for that reason, as well as we don't want any data loss in case you delete the stack and if you still want to retain the data. Our stack also supports version upgrades as well, so we use it CFN. We are using CFN init to track the changes. So earlier, what we did is we used volume mount as a part of CMI init, and then what was happening is when we tried to upgrade it, right, it was trying to mount the existing mounted stuff, and then it was failing up. So that was one learning. The other learning was we thought that we'll generate the certificate and attach it the runtime, right? It was quite possible, but for that we had to do some Lambda function invoke that will basically verify your certificate with your domain. So that was a good learning. We thought, like, if you create an SSL using AWS certificate manager, it will automatically add it to your domain, but it has extra step. Again, another thing was on the upgrading version, right? CFN hub command, it takes some time because we configure, let's say, 5 or 10 minutes for CFN hub a program to run. So what happens is, if you update the stack with the newest version of your portal, then what's going to happen is it will state that stack update complete, but your deployment is still on the older version. So it's going to take 5 or 6 minutes until the next CFN hub runs, and it's going to pick up that change. So that's on the lesson learned part. So the last thing that we wanted to discuss is the future enhancement, right? So what we can do as a future enhancement to this project is we can remove the EC2 instance and then use ECS or EKS to basically scale up ROM. Like if you want to scale this, right, runtime, then we can do this. It's not a monolithic application. It is an API based application. We can integrate AWS Elasticsearch as a managed AWS service, and in this way we can get rid of EBS, and Elasticsearch containers can be removed from EC2, ECS, or EKS, however we are going to deploy. We can encrypt again an EBS volume to add a default security. However, EBS volume is in private subnet only. We can also encrypt the S3 bucket for additional data security. So that's all the future enhancement we can do. So thank you so much for listening in.